So our fourth episode opens with Bran dreaming about the Three-Eyed Crow. Now, as I've been mentioning over and over again, the Three-Eyed Crow is Bloodraven. He's a very old Targaryen bastard and wizard. He was also an albino and only had one eye. He used to be Hand of the King and had spies everywhere. And he used his magic to spy on people as well. And so people used to joke, who has 1,000 eyes and one? At some point, Bloodraven gets sent to the wall, and at some point he makes his way up to that tree. The details of all of this has not yet been revealed. Now Theon comes in and gets Bran. Now in the books, this is done by Maester Luwin. I understand why they gave this job to Theon. Theon needs more screen time. Theon plays a huge role in Book 2 and Book 5. And let me tell you, his story in Book 5 is perhaps the best story of the entire series. However, I do remember struggling to get to know Theon in Book 2. So I understand why the show wants to put more Theon on the screen. So we get to meet Hodor for the first time. He's actually the great-grandson of Old Nan. And his name isn't even Hodor, it's Walder. So where the hell does Hodor come from? Well, some fans speculate that Walder had a dream about a god named Hodor. In Norse mythology, a god named Hodor is tricked into killing his brother Balder, the god of light. A half-giant named Vali then kills Hodor. Now it's joked that Walder is half-giant, and clearly our story is about a coming darkness, so it's pretty clear that George R.R. Martin has been influenced by Norse mythology. However, these references may just be passing homage. So in our next scene, Tyrion is giving Bran a new saddle design. Now Tyrion is smart, but he's not an innovative genius. There's a reason he knows Bran can ride again. It's because the saddle is very similar to his saddle. As a dwarf, he has short legs, and faces the same problems Bran does with non-workable legs. Tyrion modified his saddle design for Bran. Now we're given this extra scene in the show between Theon and Tyrion. Again, we need more Theon time, but we also need to know about Theon's backstory. However, this scene is pretty brutal for Theon. Tyrion straight up taunts Theon for being a ward and for being an Ironborn. He even reminds Theon that his brothers are dead and his father probably dislikes him. The whole scene is pretty out of character for Tyrion. After all, Theon was around 10 when the Greyjoy Rebellion happened, and blaming Theon for his father's mistakes is pretty hypocritical. Meanwhile, back at the Wall, we meet Sam Tarly. What you don't know about Sam Tarly is that his father is the most badass general in the world. Sam's dad tried for years to make a man out of him, and eventually decided there must be something magically wrong with Sam. So he hired some warlocks from Qarth to come out and bathe Sam in blood to try to get the curse of cravenness out of him. It obviously didn't work. Now next, Jon fights to defend Sir Piggy. In the show, he fights Grenn and Pip, his best friends, but in the book, he actually fights with them. It's a larger battle, and it reminds me of the Tower of Joy. Now right after Grenn and Pip worry about their popularity at school, there's an interesting scene in the book between Jon and Sam. Jon tells Sam that he's been plagued by dreams of Winterfell. Winterfell is empty and he can't find anyone. Then he goes to the crypts, feels like he needs to go down there, but is scared to go down. He's not a Stark, he protests. We aren't sure what the hell the dream means. And what's weirder is that it's Theon who later has a similar experience in Winterfell. Next, Dany and her crew make it to Vaes Doth Rock. What's missing is that Viserys actually mentions the stallion that mounts the world prophecy. He says that Jorah told him about it, and that it's a mummer's show. So it seems that Illyrio and Jorah's manipulation of Khal Drogo goes a bit deeper. They had convinced him that Dany will fulfill prophecy. Jorah also bluntly reveals that he doesn't think Viserys has the leadership ability to conquer Westeros. Now we get this extra scene between Raya and Viserys. Raya and Viserys were having sex in the books as well, but we don't really know anything about their relationship. I do actually think this scene is fantastic because for a moment we get to see Viserys as a teacher. Viserys raises and educates Daenerys, but at the same time he doesn't value her. It doesn't seem possible that someone could put so much time and effort into someone and not care for them. And so this scene attempts to show his split personality. It's quite good. So we get this extra exposition scene between Sansa and Septa Mordane. Septa Mordane's existence in the Stark family is rather interesting, as the Stark children are being raised with the faith of the Seven. It's even suggested that Bran could grow up to become High Septon one day. It makes me wonder what types of agreements were made between Hoster Tully and Ned Stark during the war. Now some time is spent on the history of the Iron Throne. It should be noted that in the books, the Iron Throne is several steps up. The throne is also very uncomfortable to sit on. You can't lean back or you'll cut the shit out of yourself. This changes how one perceives Jaime during the scene in which Ned finds him sitting on the Iron Throne after the death of Aerys. Jaime wasn't overwhelmed and tired and just sat down on the throne. No, he climbed upstairs and was sitting actively, making certain he didn't lean back. Next we meet Janice Slynt. It should be noted that Janice Slynt is almost certainly Littlefinger's man. This comes into play later during Ned's failed coup. In the books during this small council meeting, we also find out something interesting about Stannis. He wanted to ban brothels. This would naturally put him at odds with Littlefinger, which again comes up during Ned's failed coup. Now the Jon Arryn murder mystery finally makes an appearance with Ned asking Pycelle about Jon Arryn's health and activities. Now in both the book and the show, Pycelle let Jon Arryn die. And he did so because he knew Jon Arryn knew about the incest. So I've never understood why, in both the show and the book, Pycelle gave Ned the Book of Lineages. Why would Pycelle help the Hand learn facts that he let the other Hand die over? This absolutely baffles me. Pycelle also reveals Jon Arryn's last words. The seed is strong. Now Lysa believes that Jon Arryn was talking about Sweet Robin. And as readers, we're supposed to believe that this is actually about Robert. That Robert's seed is so strong that all of his children will have black hair. But I wonder if this is a double fake-out. We later find out that Sweet Robin exhibits some magical powers. And considering that Sweet Robin was Jon Arryn's son, and Jon Arryn was consumed with keeping Sweet Robin safe, it may be that the seed is strong is actually about Sweet Robin after all. Now Ned has this heart-to-heart with Arya. What's missing from the book is that Arya and Sansa both woke up from a dream and simultaneously dreamed of Bran. That's why Arya is asking about him. So next, Jon and Sam continue their friendship on top of the wall. It should be noted that in the book, Sam is such a coward that he doesn't like going up on the wall. Now in our next scene, Littlefinger gets active in the Jon Arryn murder mystery. He suggests that Ned talk to Sir Hugh, Jon Arryn's squire. This is the beginning of a fascinating and brutal plot by Littlefinger. Littlefinger points out some of Varys' little birds. These children are taken at a rather young age to become spies. Their tongues are removed, and they have the ability to hide almost magically. Littlefinger also tells Ned to check out this armorer. Ned goes to the armorer and finds Gendry. Now it should be noted that the armorer seems to work for Varys. In A Clash of Kings, Varys has a man bring Gendry to Yoren, the Night's Watch recruiter. That man may have been this armorer. Why Varys is trying to protect Gendry is unknown. King's blood? Proof of incest? We don't know. And we have this extra scene between Jaime and Jory to give Jaime some screen time. And just to maximize this time, they talk about Theon. Back at Castle Black, Jon is trying to get everyone not to pick on Sam. What's interesting about this scene is that it's later paralleled by Sam in reverse. Jon wins over the men one by one. Later, Sam has to do the same thing when campaigning for Jon. Back in Vaes Dothrak, Viserys gets upset again when he's commanded. Raya really should have known better, and yet she commanded Viserys. It's very suspicious timing, as Daenerys was planning a peace offering dinner to make friends with Viserys again. If it weren't for Illyrio's creatures, the siblings may have reconciled. Instead, Dany hits Viserys and draws blood. Dany has accidentally committed massive sacrilege. Drawing blood is forbidden in Vaes Dothrak for some reason. Now it should be noted that killing is not forbidden in Vaes Dothrak. Men actually have bodyguards that strangle each other to death. So I imagine the no blood rule is actually the Dothraki aversion to blood magic in Vaes Dothrak. I wonder if Dany's sacrilege had any effect on the universe. And it wasn't just any blood, it was King's blood, and the blood of the dragon. Meanwhile, back at the wall, we get this long scene with Alliser Thorne where he talks about how bad winter is. I guess they want to make up for all the lines they gave to Benjen before. Back in Vaes Dothrak, we get this conversation between Jorah and Dany about home. In the books, this conversation happens much earlier, but it fits here, and they actually need it. In the book, she dreams about home, and remember, every time Daenerys dreams, she gets stronger, loses her fear, and stands up to her brother. A big confrontation is coming between Daenerys and Viserys, and in the show they made it a very conscious one that Dany made herself. In the book, it's more subconscious and magical. Back in King's Landing, the Hand's tourney has begun. Now this scene is incredibly important in the books. Littlefinger arrives, sees Sansa, and walks up to her. Littlefinger tells Sansa that her mom was his Queen of Beauty, he examines her hair, and then he storms off. It's really the only time Littlefinger has ever lost his cool. It seems that at this moment, Littlefinger realizes that Sansa is the one that's important, and not, say, Cat or Lysa. Now this is where Littlefinger's previous scheming seems to come to fruition. Littlefinger told Ned to talk to Sir Hugh, but Ned hasn't had the chance yet. Sir Hugh then mysteriously dies in this joust. Now because the Mountain kills Sir Hugh, and because the Mountain is a Lannister man, Ned starts suspecting that Cersei murdered Sir Hugh. In truth, the Mountain would likely kill whoever he was up against in the joust because he's a bloodthirsty asshole. In the book, Sir Hugh is a target because someone forgot to fasten his collar guard. It would be an easy thing for Littlefinger to hire someone not to fasten his guard and hire someone else to put him against the Mountain in the lists. Now the show has added this scene to give some backstory to the Hound, but man, Littlefinger is creepy. Isn't he trying to get into Sansa's pants? Now the show gives us this scene to give Cersei a little more screen time. Now there's definitely sexual tension between Ned and Cersei in the book. I'm not sure if the show has captured it or not. And finally we have Tyrion's capture at the inn at the Crossroads. Now I've always wondered if this meeting was accidental or planned. On Tyrion's end, he would stop wherever Yoren would bring him, really. Yoren controls the speed of the horses, so where they end up is fully Yoren's doing. It may be that Yoren wanted Tyrion to run into Bronn. I suspect that both Yoren and Bronn work for Varys. However, on Catelyn's end, it seems she only went into the inn because it started raining. If someone wanted Catelyn to run into Tyrion, it would take a bit of magic. So who knows, maybe it's just a big coincidence. It's really hard to say at this point. And that's all there is for episode 1.4. We'll see you in episode 1.5.